Welcome to episode 2 of Starting a Startup. In the first episode, I talked about creating a real estate investment app that's modeled after the BiggerPockets suite of real estate investment calculators. And in that video, we created the initial shell for our project. And so in this video, we're going to be continuing on that same project by adding some additional functionality. So the project is still in the very early stages, and there's some basic things I need to add to be able to do anything meaningful with the project overall. So in this video, I'm going to take some time to build out the overall folder structure that's going to serve me long term, in addition to selecting a CSS framework called Tailwind that's going to be the style and dressing for the application itself. Then I'll create a test server API that's going to serve to provide us data to the application. Then I'll end by adding .environment variables that's going to be used to provide passwords for MySQL and other external services that we'll be needing, such as Stripe in the future. That's quite a lot to do, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Alright, so picking up from where we left off, we're going to go ahead and create some folders. These folders are very much a carryover from Nuxt 2.0. And so because we are using Nuxt 3.0, a lot of the folder structures are not automatically created for us. So I tend to like these folders, so I'm going to go ahead and just create them. So now we're going to install Tailwind. I haven't used Tailwind really in any project before. I typically write CSS from scratch. However, that is super time consuming, and Tailwind looks nice. It works really well. So I'm just going to, for this project, go ahead and use Tailwind from the get-go. There's quite a lengthy process, as you can tell, to get Tailwinds up and going. This segment is actually longer than the rest, and all we're dealing with is CSS. From the CSS configuration to for Tailwind, everything just seems very much involved. But I think it's going to pay off in the long run because we're not going to mess with a lot of CSS being built by hand, and not worrying about different media queries and all these things. So I'm just going to go with Tailwind at this point. On my website, I have a complete how-to on how to do this. So please check that out. I think it's going to be very helpful for you. So at this point, we're adding in the purge section. And now we're going to create the CSS file that's actually going to be imported in all our pages and our components. So here I made a mistake. That should be css/style.css. That way it aligns with our Nuxt config TypeScript file. But in either case, I'm going to import Tailwind there so it actually works. Overall, importing and using Tailwind was a bit of a nightmare of sorts. I had to redo it multiple times. In fact, I used the original instructions from Tailwind's website, and it did not work out for me. So I had to modify it, and once I did that, I wrote this tutorial on my website, which again, please check it out. It helped me to actually get Tailwinds up and running. But in either case, at this point, things are working, and as I can see there, I can see the Tailwind classes are actually impacting our web page. So at least that's accomplished. So what I want to do now is just going to build something that looks better on our page by just doing some type of simple landing page. I'm just going to go to this website. I thought it was helpful. I'll copy all of that. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to slap it onto our page. And then from there, I'll just kind of tweak some minor things. So again, Tailwind is working, so that's fantastic. That pre-order button doesn't do anything at this time, but let's go ahead and kind of build out our page and have it do something, or at least have some data. So we're just going to define some components, create a variable called app pockets, and have it to be displayed on the page. So instead of having a hard-coded text, we can kind of just interpolate this. Now, this is a problem here. I have to manually reload every single page. I'm not sure if there's a complete bug within Nuxt 3.0, but hot reloading is not working out of the box. I did a lot of Googling and just at this time not a fix. So if you have a solution or you know of a solution of how to fix the hot reloading, please let me know. But right now I'm having to manually say, hey, refresh the page in order to see updates being rendered to my page, to my app. So that's kind of frustrating. But in any case, we're going to press on. For this project overall, I initially thought to use Nuxt 2.0. However, I want to be in line with the future versions of Nuxt, so I'm just going to build still with Nuxt 3.0. I'm super comfortable with Nuxt 2.0, but I don't want to be outdated when my app launches because Nuxt will be in its final version. Right now it's still in beta, but we're gonna press on with it still. All right, so that does it for the Tailwind section. Everything still checks out, so let's move on to bigger and better things. Server API. Now in Nuxt 3, things are done completely different. To create a server endpoint or API, you create a folder called server/API and you drop in a file that exports a function, and that function or file name therefore becomes your endpoint that you're going to call. And so we'll see that here in a moment. We'll create something called server info, and here we'll export a function. So for this test function, what we want to do is just go ahead and return a basic object that has some information that simulates, meaningful information being returned from our application. And so it's just going to output some name, a version number, and yours truly sold this code. Hey, anyways, so we see that that's working. So let's go ahead and output it to the page by using a setup function. Again, this is new to me. It's completely different from Nuxt 2.0, and of course it's using Vue 3.0. But in either case, we're going to be using their new fetch API, and then being able to get that information. Again, I have to reload, and so voila, I'll come up here and go ahead and output that information, and as we can see that works. And again, we have to reload everything. So as part of setting up our project, we need a way to store sensitive information so that it's not embedded within our code or that it doesn't live on our database. So to do that, we'll use .env package by installing that. And then we'll create a .env file within our application root. So we'll go ahead and create that there. Within this file is where we're going to store MySQL database passwords and so on, Stripe and such. But for now, we're going to add this top secret information that you're not supposed to share with anybody. Don't tell. So as early as possible within our application, and in the case of Nuxt, our Nuxt config file is the earliest point in time that we need to go ahead and then import .env/config. So we'll go ahead and import that. And just to make sure it's working, we're just going to log it out to the console to see if, of course, it's working or not. So if we go ahead and stop the server and then restart it, we'll see here our top information, our top secret information is there. All right, that's cool. So let's go ahead and just erase that and then comment that out. Next, I need to then install MySQL. So I'll Google MySQL 2. I'm using MySQL 2 because this particular package is very much updated on a regular basis compared to just regular old MySQL. So I'm going to install this one versus the prior that I just stated. So I'll copy this and go ahead and run that on my console. Alright, so now I want to then copy some starter pieces of code that I can just slap into my application. I always like to use connection pools because that way I can recycle the information. But just prior to doing that, I'm just going to update this with my database connection information, my name, or the database name, the host name, username, password, etc. And then I'm going to create a database connection file that's going to function to export the connection pool here that we're creating. So I'm going to copy that, paste that over, and then simply just feed it all the information that we put in our environment variable just a moment ago. And so that's good. Then finally, I'm going to module export the connection object. As I forgot to include the password, I'll just go ahead and update that now. Alright, so we're looking good there. So next I want to go into my server.info and then be able to test out to see if the database is actually working. I'll copy this piece of code there. And then here I want to import our DB connection object that exports the pool, and then create a quick promise-based function that's going to make a query that waits for the query to finish and then returns the set of roles that we're going to be querying here, and then returns that back to the calling function below, the exported API route that we created earlier. All this is to just make sure things are working as they should, so that we can then build upon them later. Now, because I'm using await, I'm going to go ahead and make this function now async, and so I will then return data as part of this object that's being returned by the function. And finally, I'm going to go ahead and test this out by saying server. I need to go ahead and restart the server because hot reloading doesn't work. If you know how to fix this, please let me know. So once that's restarted, I can then go ahead and restart the server. And where I can see all of my information is there, so that's looking good. Yeah, well, there we have it. Everything looks to be checking out. Alright, I think I accomplished quite a lot in this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, please consider giving me a like. Again, my name is Solus Code. Consider checking out my other videos.